All right, here we are. Welcome, Violetta. It's been a while since I've seen you face to face, and it's so good to have you.
Hi, Tara. Hello to all the listeners. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. So, let me first share how I first met you, and then I'm going to have you tell everyone who you are.
Okay.
So, it's been 3 years almost, I believe. It's kind of a blur. But in 2023, I had just come across your page like 2 weeks before I joined Soulfire Mastermind. And so I had just found you and I was like, ooh, this woman, I'm totally vibing with everything that you're sharing. And then God said, you're meant to be in her mastermind. And I said, okay. And so it led to such a beautiful, really just initiation into the truth of my soul because I was kind of new in this realm and it opened up so much for me. So I'm so grateful for that experience. And so that's how I met you. And so I would love for you to share who you are, what you do, all of your magic, and I'll let you go from there.
Okay. So the interesting thing about this is we were supposed to record this about 3 months ago, and who I am has completely shifted since then. So
Yes.
let me reintroduce myself. So I think in my essence, I am me as a woman and a writer and someone who is here to think deeply. So I have a PhD in cultural studies and project management. I have spent 15 years in the coaching industry in various capacities. I have built several businesses and brands in this space, and I specialized in leadership development. And right now, I have gone through a big process of rediscovering who I am through a different lens. And I think in my core, it is still the same. I am a writer, a speaker, a teacher, but I think on the other end of that void and that transformation that I have come out of, I think the core has been refined. And in the core, I am a vessel. And this is actually what we want to talk about today, being a vessel. Because beyond all labels, beyond all fancy achievements and biographies and concepts and titles, who I feel we are as human beings, and especially as feminine beings, is simply vessels for God's will. We are here as individuated agents with unique gifts, skills, and with a big purpose. We are all puzzle pieces in this collective puzzle, and we are here to fulfill something so much greater than us. So that is who I am right now.
I love it. I love it. I remember watching The Vessel Way. So you held a master class. It was a few years ago. And when I when I watched it, it was just like all the lights turned on because I had been sort of navigating the fields of manifestation and feeling like a lot of this doesn't resonate. I'm chasing things. And then when I try to manifest something and it doesn't work out, I feel like I'm doing it all wrong. And then I watched The Vessel Way and I was like, this is it. I am a vessel coded being. That's who I am. I'm here to do God's will. And I was still navigating the fields of my relationship to God too. So it was like a lot of confusion that finally makes complete sense to me now and like resonates so deeply. So will you share more about the vessel way and what exactly it means?
You are saying something so particular and so interesting that it resonated completely. And this is what I notice when I'm having conversations about being a vessel with people. They either recognize it and they say, this is me 100%, or they stare at me as if I've grown two heads. There is no in between, okay? And that is fine because I think you've also used a very beautiful word for it, coded. You are coded in a certain way. I think vessel, essentially, it's a template. It's for some of us, it feels as if this is even our biological design. So it's not just an abstract concept. It's a way of being. It's a wiring. This is how you are wired. This is how you are built. This is how God has woven you in your mother's womb. So it's not an accident. And I think vessel beings, they're not special. They're not better than anyone else. It's just a particular way of running energy, a particular way of relating to the world, to yourself, to your purpose, and to God. So it's not a technique. It's not a system. It's not a blueprint. It's not an archetype. So to me, it's just the most simple way of explaining how some of us are meant to operate as bridges between God and this world. And I think many of us got sidelined into trying to prioritize our own will and imposing this will on reality through various techniques like manifestation and abundance and this and that. And there's no shortage of teachings on that. And for some people, they work. So I don't want to categorically deny that and to say that they are demonic or something like that. I don't want to put any labels on people. You do you. But what I notice is for certain people, first of all, the very motivation of having all of those ego-driven personal accomplishments and lists of what they want, it is just not interesting. Not only is it not interesting, but they also see through their own life experience that the complexity of life removes and negates any and all entitlement to having what you want. This has certainly been my story. I have had a lot of loss and grief in my life. I've had so many pivots, one just recently completed. And what I've learned from it, as someone who has accomplished a lot also and has known not only loss but also success, I've come to see that none of it is my doing. None of it. All of it is God's blessing. And when I just follow that direction and stay in obedience, which is a very interesting energetic texture of obedience, trust, and surrender, then I am led not to what I want, but to what I need. And as a human, I often do not know what I need. So my prayer is, God, give me not what I want, but what you think I need, because you know best. You made me. So vessel to me starts with correcting our relationship with God. And for many people, it's a long journey. It's not as simple as simply saying, Jesus vibes only. No, it's way more complex than that. Many of us have to wrestle with God. And it's a very separate process from choosing a religion or going back to church. For some people, those processes are one, they maybe will go get rebaptized. We see there is this whole movement now happening, especially in the coaching industry. Many people are getting disillusioned with those teachings. Not because, again, I don't want to say that they're demonic or wrong or bad, because I think that's just very one-sided, but because they are experiencing a direct relationship with God, and they are seeking that direct relationship with God. Because many of us, we start noticing that, okay, maybe you've been doing this for 5 years, for 3 years, for 10 years, and you start noticing patterns, and you start noticing that it's not as simple as ABC. It's not as simple as it gets presented to us as just follow the manifestation formula and then you will have whatever you want. And okay, maybe some people already have whatever they want, but they're still not fulfilled, because if we are not in sync with our deeper calling and our deeper relationship with God and our deeper relationship with our soul, I think there will always be that emptiness. People will always then be on that spiritual merry-go-round, going from one modality to the next, from one meaning-making system to the next, just trying to see, how do I fix what is broken in me, because they haven't actually touched the core. And I think that core is God's love. It's not about obeying some kind of old dude in the cloud who wants to see you around. To me, it's rather remembering how loved I am as a daughter of God primarily, and as a vessel who is just so in sync with that deeper undercurrent of purpose, and so willing and so receptive that of course I'll be taken care of. Of course I will be provided for. There is nothing to manifest. There is nothing to fight for. There is nothing to grasp and strive for. This has been, I think, at the core of my own inner work for the last year, getting out of that performance mode and high achiever mode, because that essentially is just depleting, especially for a woman. And to me, vessel way is that paradigm, that way of being, of consecrating myself and my business and my life and my work and my gifts in service to something greater. Side note, knowing that this something greater may not look like anything that I have imagined for myself. I'm open. Like, for me, God, use me. If you want me to burn my business down, I will. If you want me to exit the coaching industry, I will. If you want me to go and apply myself in a different industry and context completely, I will. Just show me how you want to use me. That to me is vessel way.
Oh my gosh. Yes,
Mm.
yes, yes, yes. There's so many points there that I'm just like, I've lived through it. And it's
Mm.
so fascinating because often we can assume that God wants us to serve through our business. And that means
Mm.
make as much impact, bring more clients in. Like, we're assuming that we think that God
Mm.
must want us to be successful in our business. And actually, sometimes it's like, actually, maybe the quote unquote failure or the struggle
Yeah.
in your business is actually what God wants for you so that you can shed that ego driven, purpose driven, I must be successful programming and come closer to him in just that beautiful surrender like a child where you're just like, everything I'm trying isn't working, God, you know? And it's like, but why? What am I doing wrong? Am I in the wrong vibe? Am I in the wrong energy? And it's like, no, God is saying, listen. And sometimes it's not immediately shown. It's like you actually have to navigate the uncomfortability of not seeing the clear path and the frustration of like, yes, but previously in my life, I made a plan and I worked towards my goal and I achieved the
Mm,
thing. And it's like that it just has to be dismantled so that we can truly live as God intends without any personal agenda other than to serve God. And sometimes it's got nothing to do with our business. Like for me being here with my family in Texas, that was the last thing I wanted. The
mhm,
last thing. To me, that was not glamorous. That was not, it was filled with
mm,
sticky things. Like I can't just be in my little hermit cave on my own in my own energy. I have to navigate the fields of some uncomfortability. And now I see all of the blessings that have come with it. And I'm like, God, you were right all along.
yeah,
Of course, you always know what's best. So it's such a blessing, but it's not easy. Not easy at
yeah.
all.
I wanna pick on that one thread that I'm noticing. I think many people who are solopreneurs and entrepreneurs get completely fixated on the business owner identity. Many of us are so devoted and dedicated that this devotion and dedication starts turning into obsession and over identification with the work. And I think identity is a very dangerous thing because identity can get calcified as a shield. And then you are no longer in touch with your soft vessel heart and core. You are not receptive. And it's very easy then to go very narrow and to start only seeing the business as the outlet for purpose. And I think many women that I'm working with in the solopreneur space, they are now seeking to move out of that. Some of them want to work just part time and spend more time with their kids so that they don't miss their kids' lives while they are busy building something and hitting some numbers. I'm also seeing some people are diversifying their income to remove pressure to only produce through the business. Some people are taking maybe corporate jobs so that they can focus on not on business but on art. And I think we need to start thinking bigger and we need to start decoupling purpose from business, identity from business. Because that whole thing of, I am a coach, I am a healer, I am changing the world. Yes, you are, but this is just one of the outlets. The cost of identifying and meshing, I would even say, and meshing with the business, that cost is very high. Because then when something happens in the business or in the service or in the work, you start thinking that it's your fault. So you cannot then unlink yourself from that vehicle. But to me, the way I see business, and I think maybe in some sense it's even wrong to use the word business for what we're doing if we are working in the transformational space. I would rather call myself a service provider rather than a business owner because none of us, I think 99% of people that I talk to in the space is like they never set out to be a business owner. They didn't set up because what is a business? It's an entity that is driven by creating profit. No, we operate through some legal entity and we present as a business, but what we are is service providers, essentially, providers of transformation. So for many, businesses are closer to a ministry or an artistic self expression, one woman show. It's closer to that than to a business. But I digress. What was I saying now? I lost my train of thought. I went on a little
Okay.
tangent.
Everything you just said, you won't even believe this, but you will because we're so synced up. It's like amazing, but of course. So, my friend Carly, about a week ago, we were messaging back and forth, and she said, I feel like you want to ask me something. And I said, Oh, I do? I do? Okay. And the question that was there was, do I have a business? And I was like, what a strange question. And she comes back with like a 5-minute message, and she's like, well, what I'm seeing is that it's actually a cathedral, and what's inside is actually your ministry. It's not a business. And I was like, and all of a sudden it clicked. It's like, yes, it's a business, but how I was viewing it, it's like the architecture and my soul, there was a disconnect, right? Because I was seeing it in like business terms instead of actually, this is like my venture in the world through which I bring through God's ministry through me. And it's like, of course, of course. And then like everything sort of synced back
Mm.
up. But literally everything you just said, it's like that was like 5 days ago that came through.
I'm not surprised. I had a very similar conversation with Clara on her podcast, and her word for it is world builder. And I think what you're talking about now and sharing this story about what Carly said, I think is just very symptomatic of what we are collectively going through. We, I think, got a little bit carried away in the last decade of that entire vibe of online business and business coaching, how some of those principles, for example, bro marketing, they somehow filter down into the healing space and the spiritual space and the hands-on coaching space and the feminine space where we wanted to apply some of those principles. And I think they're very important because I consult my clients very often on business strategy. I have a very strategy driven mind. You know that from being in my mastermind. For me, it's not just vibes. I love me a good profit and loss statement, okay? I love me a good, like, a hardcore like business plan because I think it's very important with what you are going to the market. Are you providing any actual value? But all that said, we cannot declare business as our essence. It's not our essence. It's not who we are. Let's not mix our essence and the structure that we are operating within, because then there'll be confusion. Then I think words have power. And when we consent to using the word business, we are also consenting to the entire paradigm behind that. And if it's not the paradigm that you want to align yourself with, that you don't want to create that micro energetic consent towards that, then don't say it. Use the word service provider, world builder, whatever your own word for it is. But I think it's very important to keep it energetically clear and clean so that we are not moving into spaces that we actually do not want to partake in energetically.
Yeah, I feel that. Even the word soul business, it's like it feels
Mm,
clunky, right?
yes,
It's
yes.
like and there was a time that felt correct, and now it feels different. It's like it's shifted, something is different. And even
Yes.
like New Earth business, that also feels I don't know, there's
Mm,
something there that has resonance, and then there's something there that
mhm,
feels a bit dissonant. It's almost like we're in the in between, so nothing quite feels as it is
mhm.
meant to be yet. And so we're kind of in the soup, is what it feels like.
In the soup or in a smoothie.
Yeah.
Something like that. But you know what I think? I think about 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago, soul business, I think linking those two words together, it was necessary as a permission slip. That is, I think, why we said things like spiritual business and soul business. It served a purpose. It was a linguistic code that validated the desire of certain entrepreneurs, no, certain, how would I even call that? Service providers, yes, or providers of transformation, validated their desire to participate in the marketplace. We needed that validator, but now I think we are shifting into something, and I guess you and I are being quite oracular now. We are trying to preview that timeline, but it's still a quantum soup. So it is getting shaped by us as we move. And that's what brings me back to vessel. I think that is what we're moving towards. Serving as vessels, not trying to extract from ourselves and turn it into that business money making machine, but rather to exist in a more organic flow. Where I recently created a self study curriculum called Consecrate. And to me, that word is very meaningful, where we say, I consecrate this work and everything, all the assets that go with it, be that an Instagram account, a website, an offering, a launch. I consecrate that as an offering. Me being a vessel, that's how I approach it. And then, God, do whatever you will with us through that portfolio that I have in the world. And we are not seeing it as a standalone entity that we want to milk for money and validation and accomplishment. I think that is the main change.
I love that. I can see for myself that I have often said the words, I consecrate my business to you, God, and, all the things. And I was still gripping very tightly to how I thought it should be and how I wanted it to
Mm.
be. And I feel like there's no easy way to move through that transition. It's kind of like a surrendering over and over and over and over. And each time you release that grip a little bit more, at least that's been for me. And I didn't even realize how much I was trying to control it until fairly recently. And still, it's like that controlling protective mechanism tends to come through. And then what I realized too, going back to the idea of being loved as a daughter
Mhm.
of Christ, it's like that love is unconditional. So we don't have to earn it. We don't have to be in the mindset of, my soul said yes to you, God. And so I'm here and I'm going to do your will and I'm going to, you know, take all of the actions so that I can make sure that you're pleased with me.
Yes.
Like earning the approval of God, it's not needed. I mean, the love, can we accept it even if we haven't earned it? For me, that's been a challenge of like, can I let God's love into my heart, into my soul continuously, not just sometimes, like, but continuously and walk as a vessel of God within me, knowing that I'm loved no matter what.
I'm just gonna quickly look something up to make sure that I quoted correctly. Yes, I found it. Okay, I'm coming to that in a moment. But I so agree with what you're saying with regards to not needing to earn God's love. But it is, I think, it's so deeply ingrained in us, the culture of performance, the culture of validation. And here I'm gonna do a little Violetta fiery rant. I think the culture of social media and online business is really playing up the performance wound, the good girl wound, and the invisibility wound in terms of we are trying desperately to get seen. We are so hooked on that validation because it's embedded in the design of those platforms. And we feel as if we are like dancing monkeys for the algorithm, trying to get our work out there. And this is my beef with the industry. Actually, it's the distribution channels and how they have shifted within the last 10 years. There was a bait and switch that happened because we thought we are given those platforms so that we can advance our work and support the mission. But then those platforms essentially turned on their users, and now it's pay to play. I'm reading currently a fascinating book. Have you heard of it? It's called Careless People.
No.
So, absolute must read. Careless People by Sarah Wynne Wallace. I'm totally butchering her name. So, she was manager of public policy at Facebook from, I think, 2011 until 2018. So, the book is her memoir. And Facebook actually got an order to stop her from promoting the book, but the book became a bestseller anyway because she totally exposes Facebook in it. Okay. And the book is just like, it reads like a horror novel. And she's a very good writer. So it's a very entertaining read. And it just highlights how we are sometimes powerless over those political systems that we again are embedded in. And that brings me to the question of, but how do we participate? Like, why are we even participating in all of that? As if there is no choice but to participate in those platforms. But what I take away from that book, and again, I'm not saying like there is no way of validating if everything that she's saying is the absolute truth. But I don't think that Facebook would be going to like federal court to try and silence her if it wasn't true. So essentially, what it's showing us is how can we move ourselves out of the spaces that make us dependent on them? How can we preserve our sovereignty? How can we unhook from that entire architecture of business, architecture of social media that is trapping us in that performance mode? And I think, again, this is one of the reasons why so many people are coming back to God and they are seeking Christ and they are seeking that nectar of God's love because they feel deeply unseen on social media and deeply unseen in their work, even if they have amazing depths to what they're doing, even though their clients' results are amazing. I talk to so many people who are like, I feel like nobody cares about what I have to say because I'm way deeper than the world around me. And I think this is why we need to start unhooking from those external validation mechanisms. We need to start looking elsewhere, and just giving it to ourselves is not enough. This is also the trap because sometimes personal development tells you, oh, but you feel unseen on the internet, but are you seeing yourself? They turn the tables on you and go like, but you need to see yourself. Like, hello, this is not the problem we're trying to solve here. And I think this is where God comes in, because we go like, but I am seen by my creator first and foremost. Then it doesn't matter anymore who is seeing me on the internet. Then what becomes very interesting is, but why am I actually participating in all of that? Why? Am I doing it on autopilot? Am I doing it just because this is the default distribution channel for the industry? Or do I actually want to focus on growing my community? Then again, unlinking from that business identity, going back to the real world, going back to our families, going back to our network, going back to other ways of sourcing business that don't hook us into those corrupt platforms.
Yes, so much yes. I actually deleted my Facebook completely about a year ago. I never really used it much, but even just that etheric link that was there, even though I wasn't doing anything, it was bugging me. I was just like, no, it has to go. It's just like I can just the energy is just not. And with Instagram, it has, I've battled with my Instagram
Mhm,
relationship so much. It's it's pleasing to God for me to be there right now, and I
mhm,
know that within me.
mhm,
So even though I, rant and I kick my heels sometimes, I'm still
mhm,
showing up. And I come back to this is impacting people, even if I don't know. Like I might not get comments or DMs or likes, but I can feel that some of the things that God wants me to speak, even if it's the most simple thing, like my dogs on a walk,
mhm,
it's impacting someone. It's helping them. It's lifting their heart up. So there's these little, well, they're not little. That's the thing. They
mhm,
feel little, but they're actually momentous because we do not know what God's
mhm,
purpose is for. Why am I feeling called to share this? It's like, well, I don't know, but this wants to be shared. So I'm going to put it on my stories and do
mhm.
it. And then detach from okay, but is there a call to action? Is there are
That's one.
it's like
Sure, what am I selling here?
I realize often that there were times that I needed to place a call to action to actually invite people in, and I was hiding, so I didn't. But then there's other times where that's not needed because that's not the purpose of this story at this moment. So if we could detach from, you know, it's like, yes, you need mentorship, but then sometimes there's so much mentorship advice spinning in your head. And
Mhm,
it's like, we got to get back in our body and just be like, none of that matters. Like, what
mhm,
matters right now? I often think when I'm on my deathbed, will any of this stuff matter? I think we overthink so much and we obsess about things so much. And it's like, it's all of those things become trivial when you come back to what's really important. And I think that's when, things with family and close friendships. And like, I was just in Ireland and Sweden visiting Clara. And I thought, my gosh, this was all made possible because of Instagram. Like,
mhm,
my my experience meeting you, meeting Clara, I saw Delphine in Wicklow as well, and Melanie and Felix. Like, I met all of those beautiful people through Instagram. God is moving through these
mhm.
fields. So
God
that's
is
that's where
everywhere.
I have to come back to of like,
Mm,
okay, until the time that I know I'm supposed to truly release this, not because I don't want to be visible or not because,
mhm,
it's too difficult for some personal reason, I'll be there. And I think sometimes navigating, is this God's will or is this not, can be the challenge. But I've gotten pretty good with, I can feel it deep within me if it's God's will. Like, it's not that difficult for
mhm.
me to figure out. It's like, it's pretty easy. It's like, do you want me here, God? Yes. Okay.
That's obedience. That's vessel way. And I want to contrast what you are sharing with my example, which recently was instruction to do the absolute opposite. You know me, for years I was so good with showing up. I was so on fire. I was like very high output. I was always coming up with new ideas. I always had something to say. Like I'm this person who has a lot to say. But then God started to tell me, Violetta, shut up. And sometimes think that there is time to lead and then there is time to listen. And there is time to just sometimes go quiet, go MIA. And this is what I've been doing quite a lot within the last 5 months, 6 months, because I have been really interrogating what is next for me. Do I want to be in the coaching industry? Do I want to become a professional cat breeder? Or maybe a fashion stylist? Or maybe something else entirely? And honestly, this inquiry is not yet complete. It's not yet complete because pieces of guidance are dropping as we speak. And for now, I know that I'm very called to write. And then one day I will write a memoir. And sometimes little bits and pieces come through. For example, this course, Consecrate, it came through. So I was like, okay, even though I'm not particularly active online at this point, I am going to release this. And I somehow had 3 times more sales than I had for stuff I launched last year, even though I theoretically did less. But it came as that anointment, as that, like, okay, you have those frameworks. This is what you can teach. You need to record this. You need to give it to people. You need to talk about it for a week and then step back. But I think what I'm trying to say here is it's as important to feel comfortable with not showing up as it is with showing up. Because in the online space, there is this bias towards consistency, towards leadership, towards showing up, as if you must always be on your high horse and on fire. But this is not how life works. And I think obedience means knowing when is your chapter to go ahead full speed and when it's your chapter to go back to the cave or to just rest and wait for guidance. Because again, our value, our worth is not in our output. It's in just our presence. And maybe the season of being hidden, of being covered, is even more rich in its gifts than the season of being out there. That's what I'm discovering right now.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel so much resonance with all of that. And we had spoken earlier before we started recording about coming back to going to church. And my journey with coming back to Catholicism last year taught me so much about obedience and surrender that I don't know that I would have found those elsewhere. Like,
Yeah.
it was very much Mother Mary speaking to me and sort of very gently ushering me in the right direction.
Mhm.
It's never as clear as, Tara, you're meant to be going back to church. It's not like that. It's
Mhm.
this gentle sort of showing
Mhm.
me the way, and then I get to choose, you know? But I read a lot of books on saints last year, and so much of what they experienced in their own spiritual path and in their visions and in their teachings I could resonate with so deeply because it's all vessel coded. It truly is. And there was one book in particular, it's here somewhere. I'll put it in the show notes. It's
Mhm.
called Abandonment to Divine Providence. And it's by Father Pierre de, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was French in the fifth. And he was like I was going to say a guide, but yes, like a mentor,
Mhm.
spiritual mentor for these nuns. And
Mhm.
so in the book, there's all of these letters that he wrote to the nuns, giving
Mhm.
them guidance. And it's fascinating. But the whole book is about abandonment to divine providence. And it's abandonment of the self, which often we're thinking of like you're not meant to abandon yourself, but that's kind of a different context.
Yeah, it's not
Not
the same news.
you know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
abandoning the ego, basically, and complete and utter abandonment to God's will for you. And I kept coming back to the book again and again and again, like for months last year. And there's a concept he speaks of in it called the divine action. And it's
Mhm.
like allow the divine action. And the way I see that is like the hand of God moving through your
Mhm.
life. And there's lots of angelic guidance in that. And I realized that I wasn't always allowing the divine action. And I would actually take a pause and check in like, am I allowing the divine action? And I'd get a no. And then I'd sort of just sync up with it, where I'm like, almost like a river where you're not in the mainstream, you're just standing on the edge and like your feet are in the water, but you need to actually like step in and let the river just take you. That's allowing the divine action. And then from there, you're actually truly allowing God's hand to move you where you need to be, which was coming back to church. And it was the last thing I ever expected because since childhood, I pushed away Catholicism. But I never really knew what Catholicism really was. Like, I went to church on Sunday, and, you know, in Ireland at that time in the 80s, it was very strict and very stern. And it wasn't, it's kind of like just a sliver of what was being taught was actually like the breadth of what the Catholic Church really is. And of course, the fallen one is going to move through the places where people are coming closer to Christ. Like, of course, it's like, well, it makes so much sense as to why there's been so much distortion and abuse and, all the things. So I started to see the true fields where I had not seen them before. And then my prayer through all of that was, God, show me truth. God, show me truth. God, show me truth and clear what's false. And so that process, kept taking hold. And then I just, again, like surrendered to, I don't have to know it all in my mind. I don't have to intellectually figure out all of the theological stuff. All I need to know is when I am in the Mass and when I pray the rosary, it's true. And so it's true for me. It doesn't have to be that this is the only way for everybody. I think that God calls us all to different places for different purposes, which I know in the Catholic faith, it's like, this is the only way. I feel like I can see why there's that belief because Jesus is the way, Jesus is our savior. However, how God wants to guide people and where he wants people is going to be unique to them. And so I struggled with that for a bit. And then I came back to all I actually need to know is where am I called? Where am I meant to be? Not what everybody else is doing. And so here I am a week ago going to confession for the first time in 30 years. Like, it was so powerful. It was so powerful, so beautiful. The priest actually said, if I had known, I would have brought the champagne. He was really sweet and really kind and, spoke to me of the prodigal son and the unconditional love of the father and so beautiful. And so all of that to say is we have to surrender to where we don't know we're being led. And so it's interesting because I just feel like God has a sense of humor as far as like, surprise, here you are. And you can still be an energy healer and you can still work in the quantum and you can still help people in all these different realms because that's who you are and that's where I've asked you to be. And so I know sometimes it can get very sticky in religious fields of all energy healing is bad and these things are demonic and it's like we have to navigate that middle path of figuring out what's true for us and it takes a little time sometimes, but I feel very, very grounded in being exactly where I know I'm meant to be and knowing what's true. And it's liberating. It really is because I've let go of the trying to fix myself. It's like God within me, I'm perfect. Perfect in a true sense, right? Like not in a distorted sense, but like perfect because I am God's child. And that's it.
Oh, thank you for sharing the story because, I think the matters of faith, they are so personal, but somehow by the very virtue of being somewhat of a personal brand and sharing our work and very often sharing our story and our private discoveries on the internet, it is hard to draw the line between what we share and what we don't. We just chatted about this before we hit record, and I think some things are meant to stay between me and God. There are some
Hmm.
things that just don't belong in the public realm. They don't belong in the public domain. Some people are called to very bravely and vocally share their testimony or to even make it part of their ministry. Some people are here to bring people back to God. Some people are here to glorify God in a very front facing public way. And I think it's a beautiful commission. But what I'm noticing, and it's again quite a surprise for me because I've always been someone who likes to be vocal, to have a public presence, or who was called to do that. I am being called to be more and more private about my relationship with God. But one thing to me is God is not a footnote. It's not just, just a word randomly thrown out. To me, it's the backbone of my reality. And these days, as I spend more time offline, as I spend more time working on some other personal projects that have nothing to do with business or showing up online, I notice that I am just finding delight in what I would call abiding, just being with God. I like writing letters to God in my journal. I love being rereading the Bible, and I've been finding a lot of deeps there. And I have to think to myself, why was I reading all those personal development books all these years? Well, the base personal development book is actually the Bible. And I want to share with you one verse that has been with me through the whole season of obedience and surrender. And I've been just kind of immersing myself in it. And this is what Jesus said in Matthew 11:28. He said, "Come to me, all those who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Quoting from memory. And I've been writing this in my journal over and over and over again. As I was going through my deep transformation for the last 3 months, I was like, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And I was like, he didn't say, "Come to me, all those who are successful and ready for the next quantum leap. Join my high proximity mastermind, 12 spots available, 20K investment, be in my vortex." He's like, "To me, all those who are weary and burdened." This is what Jesus said. And I think similarly, as God's children, we can bring anything to God. There is no performance required for God. And that whole idea that there is actually rest in abiding and there is rest in coming to God in whatever format that will be. It doesn't have to be come to Jesus. It doesn't have to be go to mass and do confession. I agree with you completely. Everyone will have their personal journey with God. And I think there is already an anointment placed on people's lives with regards to how they will be interacting with God, how they will be, somebody will be reading the Bible, somebody will be going to church, somebody. Tired of talking. It's Friday afternoon for me, okay? So excuse me. So it's also personal, but this whole idea of resting in God, I think is fundamental. And I think knowing that it can be so difficult to comprehend for an overachiever. As a recovering overachiever, I can confirm that. The very idea that I don't have to do much, I can just rest. And this is how God will be working through my life. Not because I produce more, not because I show up more, not because I do something special, but just dropping down. That to me is a starting point of obedience. It's actually very soft.
Mm, it's so true. It's so true. That brings to mind for me that I had been confusing devotion with output. Like,
Hmm.
if I'm devoted, then I need to work for 5 hours and make a
Mm.
post every day and make sure that I'm, doing this and doing more and doing more and doing more. And it's so interesting because God has put obstacles in my path to reduce the amount of free time that I've had. Like here, Tara,
Mm.
you're gonna have 3 dogs. It's like, yes, that's fun. And, it takes a lot of my time. It's like it's beautiful. But often if it had been my way, I would have just said, well, I'll just have one dog that's easy and sleeps all day, and then I can just do my work, do my work, do my work, and just go into that tunnel. And so different things will happen in life where, my mother wants me to go do something with her. And I can feel the resistance of like, no, but I was going to work on posts all day. And now you want me to go get a manicure? Like, and then I'm thinking, of course, this invitation is coming because I don't need to spend all day trying to tweak my messaging. It's like, yeah, I probably do need to tweak my messaging, but it doesn't need to be 5 hours. It can be
I just
20
love it.
minutes.
Maybe sometimes God just wants you to get a manicure or take a nap.
Exactly. Exactly. Like
Exactly.
it can be easier. And it's not a question of trying to get everything like figured out. I think that that's the biggest thing. It's like actually just rest in the arms of Christ. Like let it be easy. Like God is doing most of the work anyway. I feel like people don't really, like truly, because I know that the clients that are with me are sent by God. And so many people that I have worked with, they didn't come because I was pumping out CTAs on my
Mhm.
stories every day. Often they pop in out of the blue in completely unexpected ways. And it's not because I did something to make that happen. It's more of like God is actually showing me that if I just surrender, it's all perfect. It's just kind of like,
Mhm.
again, that feeling of I can just trust and it can be easier. And with money, being a single mother and brought up in an Irish Catholic family where, we were brought up, as I know a lot of our listeners would feel the same way of like, life is hard. You have to work hard. You have to get a stable job. You have to do the things. You have to be successful, all the things. And money doesn't grow on trees. So I was brought up with that. And then I was a single mother and I didn't receive child support. And it was often quite difficult. And so everything was like, I have to do the things to make the money, right? And then recently, God has shown me to surrender to allowing my mother to help me, allowing myself to just live here and not pay rent. And even as I say that, there's like a little twinge of embarrassment from conditioning of like, no, but I should be paying my way. I should be contributing.
Mm,
I shouldn't be, all the things. Like it's like the independent woman program,
that
right?
one is.
Instead of family is there for each other. We're meant to support one
Mm,
another. My mother is so happy that I'm here. She's not saying,
mm,
Tara, you're freeloading. I need you to pay $2,000 a month. It's like, no, but that was difficult for me. And so God was showing me, I'm supporting you through your mother. Her
mhm,
soul is connected with your purpose here on earth. She's here to support you. Allow her, you know? And
mm.
me, like, fighting all the way. Like, "No, I want to be self-sufficient," and, all the things. It's like,
Eh, that's the programming, right? And I think this your story just shows us how God has so many ways of showing up in our lives. That's why I say unlink yourself from your business is not the only vehicle through which abundance and blessing and financials can come through. There are so many ways, and I think also God, in a way, is directing many of us back to community, back
yes,
to the village, because we have gotten so individualistic. And many people have this strong woman facade that is the opposite of vessel way, because
yes,
vessel is soft. It requires a receptivity. But how can we actually receive when we are in that stronghold? I would call it like the stronghold of the strong, independent women. I think many of us are collectively dismantling those layers, and again, sometimes it can show up as, oh, I'm struggling. I need to move back in with my mom or something like that. No, it's not struggle. It is God allowing you to soften into receiving, restoring families. And I hear actually you are not the only one. I know several people who reconnected with their families and went to live with their families because there was healing work that had to be done. And that is
yes,
beautiful. That is beautiful. And I also want to say something. You started talking about devotion, and I think to me, it's a lot about stewardship, not ownership, not control. Oh, yeah, control. Yeah. Not controlling, but stewarding. Even if it is a business, even if it is being a service provider, whatever we call that, world builder, okay? Choose your own adventure. But we also don't own that. We are stewarding it. We are stewarding our gifts. We are stewarding resources. We are stewarding money. To me, that is actually the real role of an empress or a king or something like that, that royalty coding and royalty principle. It's not that you elevate yourself and put yourself on the pedestal, as self-development often positions it. No, we are anointed for a purpose and we are just managing those resources. We are directing the flow, and direction of that flow requires attunement, and that attunement requires being in the vessel state, because in the vessel state, when you empty yourself, you are then calibrated. You become that walking barometer that can receive those drops of guidance and receive those drops of truth, and that energy is then circulating. It is gestating inside the vessel, and then it can be given out as output. So I think that brings us back to where we started. Maybe that's a good point to finish, wrapping it all
yeah,
together. I'm using my hands a lot. I often speak with my hands. So it's like that is like the vessel energy. I feel like this, getting filled, putting out, getting filled, putting out.
yes, yeah. I think that's a perfect place to close. And my last thought on all of this is that often what God is calling us to do is actually to walk our divine path as a permission slip for others so that they see what we're doing. And I've had this happen often where clients, friends, colleagues, they have told me that watching my journey helps them to trust and
Mm,
has helped them to deepen in their own personal relationship with God. but it wasn't through me preaching or
Mm,
teaching a masterclass on it or trying to me purposefully put that,
mm.
message out. It was just me walking my path. And so that's where I see that God uses us in these beautiful ways and we're emanating God's truth each and every moment that we agree and keep agreeing and keep saying yes.
Mm.
So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to you. I'm so grateful to all of the awakenings and realizations and revelations that I've had through observing your journey, not just your teachings,
Mhm.
but watching you embody the woman that you are. It's huge. It's so impactful. So thank you, Violetta, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Tara. My last bit of contribution, emanation is one of my favorite words. I think emanation speaks very, very loudly. And from that angle, it doesn't matter where we are emanating that essence, be that online, be that offline, be that in our private lives, in our communities, in front of 1,000 people at a conference, or whatever it is, in corporate world. I think that is the essence. So may we all seek to become pure vessels to God's grace and God's purpose and will for our lives. That's my prayer. And thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. You are so welcome. Have a beautiful day, and we will talk soon.
Talk soon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.